The north is cold and full of whispers.
The raven carrying news of the Stark-Stannis alliance reached Casterly Rock on a cold morning when Tywin Lannister was reviewing reports from his bannermen. Sir Kevan brought the message personally, his face grim. "Brother, from our sources in White Harbor, Stannis Baratheon has landed in the north. He's met with Eddard Stark. They've formed an alliance." Tywin read the message twice. His expression never changed, but Kevan saw the slight tightening around his eyes, the only tell his brother ever gave. "What terms?" Tywin asked. "Stannis supports Stark's rebellion in exchange for northern armies backing his claim to the throne. Stark gets Jon Snow legitimized as Jon Stark and autonomy for the north." Kevan paused. "And there's more. Stannis is claiming Joffrey is illegitimate, born of incest between Cersei and Jaime." The silence stretched. Tywin set down the letter with precise care. "Summon the War Council," Tywin said, immediately. Within the hour, Casterly Rock's solar filled with Lannister bannermen. Ser Kevan stood at Tywin's right hand. The lords of houses Crakehall, Lefford, Marbrand, and Lannister of Lannisport crowded the table where a great map of Westeros lay spread. "Gentlemen," Tywin said, "the situation has deteriorated. Stannis Baratheon claims the throne and has allied with House Stark. He's spreading lies about the royal succession to justify his usurpation." "Lies, my lord?" Lord Crakehall asked carefully. "He claims Prince Joffrey is baseborn," Tywin said, his voice flat. "A falsehood designed to undermine the legitimate succession. We will not dignify it with debate. What matters is the strategic reality. We face a two-front threat, the North and Dragonstone combined. Stannis has perhaps 5,000 men," Ser Kevan said. "The North can field 20,000. That's 25,000 total. We have 35,000 under arms, with another 10,000 in training at Oxacross under Sir Stafford. Numbers mean nothing if we're fighting in the wrong place," Tywin said. He placed his finger on the map at the Riverlands. "House Tully sits between us and the North. Catelyn Stark is Hoster Tully's daughter. We must assume the Riverlands will support Stark. Then we strike there first," Lord Lefford said. "Break the Tullys before they can fully mobilize. Force Stark to either abandon his father by marriage or march south, away from his stronghold." "Precisely," Tywin said. "Sir Gregor is already raiding the eastern Riverlands. These raids will escalate. I want the small folk terrified. I want Lord Hoster to understand the cost of supporting traitors." "The raids draw out their forces," Kevan observed. "When they respond, we trap them. We divide our strength," Tywin continued. "I will lead the main host, 20,000 men, down the river road to Harrenhal. We'll control the center of the Riverlands and cut Stark off from any southern advance. Sir Jaime." He stopped. Jaime was a prisoner in Winterfell. "Lord Kevan, you will lead a secondary force of 15,000 west to besiege River Run. Pin the Tullys in their castle. Make them watch their lands burn while they hide behind walls." "What about King's Landing?" Lord Marbrand asked. "The city needs protection." "The city has the gold cloaks," Tywin said. 6,000 men, and we still hold Storm's End through Lord Renly's garrison. The Stormlands are divided. Some will follow Renly, but many will stay loyal to Robert. We'll rally them." "And the Reach?" Ser Kevan asked. "Lord Mace commands 100,000 men. The Reach will join us," Tywin said with certainty. "Mace Tyrell wants his daughter to be queen. We'll offer him Tommen for Marjorie once this is settled. The Tyrells care about prestige and power. Give them both, and they'll commit their full strength." He looked around the table at his assembled lords. "We march in 1 week. Every man, every horse, every wagon. Leave minimal garrisons at our castles. I want overwhelming force in the Riverlands. We'll crush House Tully so completely that the North will have no southern allies left. Then we deal with Stark and his Targaryen whelp at our leisure." "And if Stannis sails south while we're engaged?" Lord Crakehall asked. "Then he takes an undefended King's Landing with a few thousand men and sits on a throne surrounded by enemies," Tywin replied. "The moment we finish with the Riverlands, we march on the capital with 50,000 Lannister and Tyrell troops combined. Stannis would be trapped. He's too smart for that. He'll commit to supporting Stark's defense of the North, which means his forces are out of position to threaten the capital. Unless he splits his forces," Kevan said thoughtfully. "Stannis doesn't split forces," Tywin said. "He's methodical, conservative. He'll mass his strength where it's most needed, defending the North, which gives us freedom to maneuver in the south. The council continued for 2 hours, planning supply lines and march routes and contingencies. When it finally broke up, Ser Kevan lingered. "Brother," Kevin said quietly, "about Stannis' accusation, about Cersei and Jaime, is there any truth to it?" Tywin's face could have been carved from stone. "That is not a question you ask me, or anyone, ever. If it's true, it doesn't matter if it's true," Tywin interrupted. "What matters is that we cannot allow anyone to believe it's true. Cersei is queen. Joffrey is heir to the Iron Throne. That is reality. Stannis' lies will not change it. But if people start asking questions, then we give them answers that satisfy them. Or we make them afraid to ask." Tywin moved to the window looking out over his domain. "I built our house back from nothing, Caven. Father nearly destroyed us with his weakness. I made House Lannister feared again, respected again. I will not allow a bitter second son with a legitimate grievance about being passed over to undo everything I've built. And Cersei? Cersei will stay in Winterfell as Lord Stark's hostage," Tywin said. "She's worth more to us there than free. As long as Stark holds my daughter and grandchildren, he cannot portray himself as purely righteous. He's a man who kidnaps royal children. That plays poorly in the south. We'll use it." Caven nodded slowly. "What about Tyrion? What about him? He's in the Vale, accused of trying to murder Brandon Stark. Should we? Tyrion is clever enough to escape Lysa Arryn's madness on his own," Tywin said dismissively. "If he can't, he's of no use to me anyway. We have larger concerns. The men will wonder why we don't demand his release. The men will wonder what I tell them to wonder," Tywin said coldly. "Tyrion made his own problems. Let him solve them. We have a war to win." After Kevin left, Tywin stood alone in his solar, staring at the map of Westeros. The pieces were moving. Stark in the north, allied with Stannis. The Riverlands preparing for war. The Reach ready to join whoever offered the best terms. The Vale sealed behind the bloody gate. Dorne watching from their deserts. The Stormlands divided. And in the middle of it all, 3 children who might or might not be bastards born of incest. Tywin had built his power on fear and gold and ruthless efficiency. He had drowned rebellious vassals in their own minds. He had sacked King's Landing and presented dead children wrapped in Lannister cloaks to prove his loyalty. He had done whatever was necessary to elevate House Lannister above all others. He would not stop now. If Cersei had been foolish enough to bed Jaime, if she had truly borne bastards instead of true-born heirs, then that was her failure. But Tywin would not allow her failure to destroy what he had built. He would bury the truth so deep that not even the gods could dig it up, and anyone who tried would learn why the Rains of Castamere was the most feared song in Westeros. In King's Landing, the small council met in emergency session for the 3rd time in a week. Sir Kevan Lannister's letter sat on the table before them, its contents known to all. Lord Varys read it aloud for the benefit of the assembled councillors. Lord Tywin marches for the Riverlands with 35,000 men. He expects House Tyrell to commit another 50,000 within the month. The North and Stannis combined cannot match those numbers. Victory is assured if we maintain unity of purpose. Varys set down the letter. "Encouraging words, my lords. Encouraging if they're true," Patyr Baelish said. His gray-green eyes were thoughtful. "But Tywin assumes the Tyrells will simply fall into line. Has anyone actually secured their commitment?" "I have sent ravens to Highgarden," Sir Kevan said, offering terms. Princess Myrcella's hand for Willis Tyrell, and suggestions that when this is over, when peace is restored, a royal marriage between House Tyrell and the Crown would cement our alliance permanently. "You're offering Marjorie for Tommen." Littlefinger's smile was thin. "Before Joffrey is even crowned?" "Bold. Prince Joffrey will marry whomever serves the realm's interests," Kevan said firmly. "If that means a northern match to reconcile with House Stark after we defeat them, or a reach match to secure the Tyrells, the decision will be made by the Crown's advisors, which is to say, this council." "And what of Lord Renly?" Grand Maester Pycelle wheezed. "He has been absent from our discussions." "Where is the king's brother?" "Lord Renly has been visiting his friends in the city," Varys said delicately. "He seems unconcerned with the crisis, almost as if he has other plans." "What kind of plans?" Kevan demanded. "The kind involving a great deal of private conversation with Reach lords who happen to be in the city," Littlefinger supplied, "and a sudden interest in the royal treasury's expenditures. and questions about the loyalty of the gold cloaks. Kevin's jaw tightened. You think Renly is planning something? I think Renly is ambitious, Littlefinger said. And I think he sees an opportunity. His eldest brother is a prisoner. His middle brother is claiming the throne, but is currently sailing around the north with a tiny army. The capital sits here, largely undefended, with the king's youngest brother in residence. If I were Renly, I'd be thinking about crowns. Renly has no claim, Pycelle protested. Stannis is Robert's heir. Renly has 50,000 Tyrell swords if he marries Marjorie, Littlefinger countered. Claims matter less than armies, Grandmaster. History is written by winners. Then we should secure Renly, Kavan said. Put him somewhere he can't cause trouble. Too late, Varys said softly. My little birds tell me Lord Renly departed the city last night, with Sir Loras Tyrell and approximately 50 retainers. They rode for Highgarden. The council chamber went silent. 7 hells, Kevin muttered. He's going to make a play for the Tyrells before we can. He's going to marry Marjorie and crown himself king, Littlefinger said. I'd stake my fortune on it. The Tyrells want a queen. Renly wants a crown. They'll make a deal. He gets the throne. Marjorie gets to be queen, and together they bring 100,000 men to bear on anyone who objects. We need to stop this, Kavan said. Send ravens to Tywin. He needs to know. He already knows, Varys interrupted. I sent a raven to Casterly Rock this morning. Lord Tywin will receive word of Renly's departure within 2 days. What will he do? Pycelle asked. What he always does, Littlefinger said. Calculate, adapt, and crush whoever stands in his way. He leaned back in his chair. The question is, who do we support? Tywin is marching to face Stark and Stannis. But if Renly crowns himself in Highgarden with Tyrell backing, we have 3 claimants. Stannis, Joffrey, and Renly. The realm splits 3 ways. We support the legitimate heir, Kavan said firmly. Prince Joffrey, Robert's son. Robert's alleged son, Varys corrected gently. Lord Stannis disputes the succession, and Lord Renly will claim the throne by right of might. This council must decide where our loyalties lie. With the Lannisters, Kavan said flatly, with House Lannister, which has protected this city, funded this government, and maintained order while King Robert drinks and whores. We support Joffrey because Joffrey is Robert's heir, and anyone who says otherwise is a traitor. Bold words, Littlefinger murmured. But words don't win wars. Gold does, swords do, and right now Renly is about to secure both in massive quantities. Then we secure them first, Kavan said. Grand Maester, send ravens to every Stormlord who hasn't declared for Stannis. Tell them Prince Joffrey will remember his friends when he takes the throne. Promise them lands, titles, positions. Buy their loyalty. With what funds? Littlefinger asked. The crown is deeply in debt. 6 million gold dragons owed to various parties. The Lannisters, the Tyrells, the Iron Bank of Braavos. We can't promise rewards we can't pay for. The Iron Bank, Varys mused. Now that is interesting. The crown owes them 3 million dragons. If we default, we don't default on the Iron Bank, Littlefinger said sharply. That's suicide. They'll fund our enemies out of spite. No, we need to service that debt, which means we need income, which means we need to win this war quickly, before the treasury runs completely dry. How long do we have? Kevin asked. At current expenditures? 6 months, perhaps 8 if we economize. Littlefinger's smile was cold. After that, the gold cloaks stop getting paid. The palace stops getting food. The city starts to starve. And hungry people riot. Then we win in 6 months, Kavan said. Tywin will crush the Riverlands. He'll force Stark to come south. And when Stark leaves the north, we destroy him in the field. War over. Problem solved. Unless Renly crowns himself first and brings 100,000 men against us, Littlefinger pointed out. Then we're fighting a 2-front war. Stark and Stannis from the north, Renly and the Reach from the south. And the Lannisters, for all their gold and pride, cannot defeat both simultaneously. The council fell into uneasy silence. Sir Kevin looked around the table at these men, schemers and survivors, every one of them. They would support the crown as long as it benefited them. But the moment the Lannisters looked weak, they would scatter like roaches when a candle was lit. Grand Maester Kevin said, begin drafting those letters to the Stormlords. Lord Varys, I want daily reports on Renly's movements. Lord Baelish, find me money. Borrow it, steal it, conjure it from the air. I don't care. But I need funds to pay the gold cloaks and keep this city loyal. And what about the king? Pycelle asked. King Robert remains Lord Stark's prisoner. Should we not attempt to negotiate his release? Stark won't release him, Kavan said. Robert's too valuable as a hostage. But we can use it for propaganda. Paint Stark as a traitor who kidnaps kings. Make him look like the villain. Turn public opinion against the North. The small folk don't care about northern politics, Littlefinger observed. They care about bread prices and whether their daughters are safe from soldiers. Win the war and they'll celebrate whoever sits on the throne. Lose the war and they'll spit on whoever protected them. Then we'll win, Kavan said. He stood, signaling the end of the meeting. This council is dismissed. We reconvene tomorrow at dawn. Same time, same place. As the councillors filed out, Varys lingered. He waited until he and Kavan were alone, then spoke softly. Ser Kavan. A word, if you please. What is it, Spider? I have been considering the delicate matter of Prince Joffrey's parentage, Varys said. Lord Stannis's accusation. The implications are troubling. Stannis is a liar desperate for a throne, Kevin said flatly. Is he? Varys's smile was enigmatic. I have served many kings, Ser Kevan. I have seen many secrets, and I have learned that the most dangerous lies are the ones that contain truth. If you have something to say, say it. I merely observe that if there is any truth to Lord Stannis's claim, any truth at all, then this realm is about to tear itself apart over a lie, Varys said. And lies, no matter how well constructed, eventually unravel. When that happens, many people die. Often the wrong people. Are you threatening me? I am advising you, Varys replied. As I have advised every hand and counselor who has sat in this chamber, the realm needs stability. It needs peace. It needs wise rulers who put the people's welfare above their own ambitions. If the Lannisters cannot provide that, then perhaps someone else should. Kevin's hand moved to his sword. Choose your next words very carefully, eunuch. I choose my words very carefully always, Varys said, which is why I am still alive after serving so many dangerous masters. Good day, Sir Kevin. I have reports to prepare. He glided out of the chamber, leaving Kavan alone with his thoughts and his fears, and the growing certainty that this war would destroy everyone before it was done. At River Run, Lord Hoster Tully lay dying while his son prepared for war. Edmure Tully stood in the castle's war room, studying the map spread across the table. Brynden the Blackfish Tully, his uncle, stood beside him, pointing out strategic positions. The Golden Tooth controls access from the Westerlands, Brynden said. His voice was gravel and authority. If Tywin comes west, he'll send a force through there first. We need it garrisoned. 2,500 men minimum. We don't have 2,500 to spare, Edmure said. He looked tired. The weight of command sat poorly on him. He was a good man, but not a natural warrior. Fathers called the banners, but the levies are still assembling. We have perhaps 12,000 men under arms. Another 8,000 still coming. 20,000 total, Brynden mused, against Tywin's 35,000. We're outnumbered nearly 2 to 1. The North is sending men, Edmure said. Lord Stark promised reinforcements. The North is a month's march away, Brynden countered. By the time northern armies reach the Riverlands, Tywin will have burned half our territory. We need to slow him, bleed him, make every mile he advances cost blood. How? Guerrilla warfare, Brynden said. We can't meet Tywin in open battle. He'd crush us. But the Riverlands is our home. We know every road, every ford, every village. We harass his supply lines, ambush his patrols, burn bridges before he reaches them. Make his army hungry and tired and paranoid. Father won't like that, Edmure said. It means letting the small folk suffer. The small folk are already suffering, Brynden said bluntly. Gregor Clegane is raiding the eastern territories, burning villages, killing farmers. That's Tywin's strategy. Terrorize the population, force us to respond, trap us when we overextend. So we don't respond. We let Gregor have his fun while we prepare the real defense. Let Clegane burn our lands unopposed. Let Clegane waste his men on meaningless raids while we build fortifications and gather forces, Brynden corrected. Every village he burns is a village that can't supply Tywin's army. Every peasant he kills is one less mouth Tywin has to feed if he tries to occupy our territory. Clegane thinks he's terrorizing us. Actually, he's starving his own army's future supply base. Edmure looked shocked. That's cold. That's war, Brynden said. And it's the kind of calculation Tywin makes every day. We need to think like him to beat him. A knock at the door interrupted them. A messenger entered, bowing quickly. My lords, Lady Catelyn has sent word from Winterfell. Lord Eddard has allied with Lord Stannis Baratheon. They're preparing a joint campaign. And, the messenger hesitated. And Lord Stannis claims Prince Joffrey is baseborn, the product of incest between the Queen and Sir Jaime. Edmure and Brynden exchanged glances. Is it true? Edmure asked. Does it matter? Brynden replied. He turned to the messenger. What else does Cat's letter say? She asks that we hold Riverrun and contest any Lannister advance, but she warns that Tywin will come in force. She suggests we consider evacuating the Western Territories and consolidating our defense at Riverrun itself. Absolutely not, Edmure said immediately. We don't abandon our people. We might have to, Brynden said quietly. If Tywin brings his full strength, we can't defend every village and hold fast. Better to preserve our army and make Riverrun an unbreakable stronghold than scatter our forces trying to protect everywhere and protecting nowhere. Uncle, those are our people, our responsibility, and they'll die whether we defend them or not, if Tywin decides to make an example, Brynden said. His voice was gentle but firm. Edmure, you're Lord of Riverrun now in all but name. Your father is dying. You need to think like a lord, not a knight. Lords make hard choices. They sacrifice the few to save the many. They accept that war means death and try to minimize it, not prevent it entirely. Edmure's jaw worked. He looked young suddenly, overwhelmed by responsibility he'd never wanted. What would father do? He asked quietly. Hoster would hold Riverrun, Brynden said. He'd contest every ford and bridge, but he wouldn't overextend. He'd make Tywin pay for every inch of ground while keeping his main strength intact. And when the moment came, when Tywin was deep in our territory, far from his supply lines, exhausted from constant harassment, he'd strike. One decisive battle to break the Lannister army. Can we win such a battle? Probably not, Brynden admitted. Not without help. But we can hurt Tywin badly enough that he has to pause, reconsider, pull back. And every day we keep him tied down in the Riverlands is a day the North has to prepare. A day Stannis has to maneuver. A day closer to winter, when campaigning becomes impossible. Edmure nodded slowly. Then we hold. We make Tywin pay for every mile, and we pray to the Seven that the North sends help before we're overwhelmed. I'll begin fortifying the fords, Brynden said. Mark Piper and Carol Vance can lead the harassment forces. They know the territory, they're quick, and they hate the Lannisters. We'll make Tywin bleed. After Brynden left to issue orders, Edmure climbed the stairs to his father's chambers. Hoster lay in bed, propped up by pillows, his face gray and sunken. But his eyes were still sharp. Father, Edmure said. He sat beside the bed. The Lannisters are coming. Tywin marches with 35,000 men. Let him come, Hoster whispered. His voice was weak but determined. The Riverlands has faced worse. We've survived. We always survive. Cat's in danger. Her children. All because we supported her choice to stand by her husband. Family, Hoster said. Duty, honor, the Tully words. We live them, or we're nothing. He gripped Edmure's hand with surprising strength. Your sister needs us. Your nieces and nephews need us. That's all that matters. Even if it costs everything? Especially then, Hoster said. That's what family means, Edmure. You protect them when it's easy and when it's hard and when it's impossible. You stand with them. Always. Tears pricked Edmure's eyes. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready to be lord, to lead armies, to— No one ever is, Hoster interrupted. But you'll do it anyway. Because you're a Tully, because you're my son, and because when everything falls apart, we're the ones who hold things together. He coughed, a wet rattling sound. Blood flecked his lips. Edmure reached for a cloth, but Hoster waved him off. I'm dying, boy, we both know it. But before I go, I need you to promise me something. Anything? Protect them, Hoster said. Cat, her children, all of them, whatever it costs. Whatever you have to sacrifice. The Starks are family now. Blood of our blood through Kat's marriage. You keep them safe. Promise me?" "I promise," Edmure said, his voice breaking. Hoster closed his eyes. "Good. Now go. There's a war to fight. And I need to sleep." Edmure left his father's chambers and returned to the war room where Brynden waited with the other lords. Together they planned the defense of the Riverlands. They knew it would be brutal. Knew many would die. But they were Tullys. And Tullys kept their promises, no matter the cost. At Highgarden, Renly Baratheon made his play for a crown. He arrived with Loras Tyrell at his side, his retinue small but carefully chosen, knights and lords who were loyal to him personally, men who would support his claim without hesitation. The gates of Highgarden opened for him without challenge. He was expected. Mace Tyrell received him in the great hall with his sons Willis and Garland flanking him. Margaery sat on a smaller throne to her father's left, her expression demure, but her eyes bright with intelligence. "Lord Renly," Mace boomed. His voice filled the hall. "Welcome to Highgarden. To what do we owe this unexpected pleasure?" "Lord Mace," Renly said. He bowed, not too deeply, an acknowledgement of respect without submission. "I come with a proposition, one that will benefit both our houses greatly." "Oh," Mace leaned forward. "I do enjoy a good proposition. Please, continue." "The realm is in crisis," Renly said. He pitched his voice to Carrie, aware that half the Reach nobility was watching from the galleries. "King Robert is imprisoned by traitors in the north. My brother Stannis makes outrageous claims about the succession to justify his own ambition. And the Lannisters prepare for war to secure a throne for a boy who may or may not be Robert's son." "Careful, Lord Renly," Willis said quietly. He was the eldest Tyrell son, thoughtful and measured where his father was bombastic. "Those are dangerous words." "Truth is often dangerous," Renly replied. "But I speak it nonetheless. The question before us is simple. Who should rule the Seven Kingdoms? Stannis, who has the better claim but is unloved by all? Joffrey, who may be a bastard born of incest? Or someone else? Someone with the blood of kings, the love of the people, and the strength to actually hold the throne?" "You," Margaery said. It wasn't a question. Renly smiled at her. "Me. I am Robert's brother. His blood flows in my veins. I have the strength he once had before wine and whores ruined him. And unlike Stannis, people actually like me. I could unite the realm, end this war before it truly begins. Give the Seven Kingdoms the king they deserve." Mace stroked his beard. "And what role does House Tyrell play in this?" "Proposal? The most important role," Renly said. "I would marry Margaery. Make her my queen. Our children would rule the Seven Kingdoms. And House Tyrell would stand as the throne's most powerful supporter. Not subjects, partners." The hall hummed with whispered conversations. Mace's eyes gleamed with avarice and ambition. "A queen," Mace said slowly. "Margaery would be queen. The most beautiful queen the realm has ever seen," Renly agreed. He looked at Margaery directly. A queen worthy of songs. A queen who would be loved by the people and feared by the crown's enemies. And in exchange for this queenship, Willis said, "You want our armies." "I want our armies," Renly corrected. "If we do this, we do it together. The Reach and the Stormlands united under one banner. My banner, we march on King's Landing. Take the city peacefully. The small folk will welcome us with open arms. We secure the throne before Tywin can react, and then we deal with the North and Stannis from a position of unassailable strength." "The Lannisters won't submit peacefully," Garland pointed out. He was the second son, a warrior through and through. "Tywin will fight. Let him," Renly said. "He can't fight 100,000 men. The moment we take King's Landing, lords all over the realm will flock to our banner. No one wants to be on the losing side. We'll have such overwhelming force that Tywin will have to bend the knee or be destroyed." "And Stannis?" Mace asked. "Stannis has 5,000 men on Dragonstone and whatever northern forces Stark can spare," Renly said dismissively. "We outnumber him 20-1. He's not a threat. He's an annoyance. One we'll deal with after we secure the throne." Mace looked at his sons. Willis's face was thoughtful. Garland looked eager. Loras, standing beside Renly, radiated confidence. Then Mace looked at Margaery. "Daughter, what say you?" Margaery rose gracefully. She descended from her seat and approached Renly, studying him with those intelligent eyes. "You're handsome," she said. "Charming. Well liked. But are you strong? Strong enough to hold a throne against all challengers? Strong enough to be a true king? I am, Renly said. Prove it, Marjorie said. Marry me. Take the crown. Win the war. Then I'll believe you're strong enough. Renly smiled. Then we have a bargain. He knelt before her, a calculated gesture, showing deference while demonstrating his willingness to honor her. Marjorie Tyrell, I ask for your hand in marriage. Will you be my queen? I will, Marjorie said. She extended her hand. Renly kissed it. The hall erupted in cheers. Mace Tyrell rose from his seat, grinning broadly. Then it's settled, Mace declared. House Tyrell supports Renly Baratheon's claim to the Iron Throne. Summon the banners. Gather the armies. We march for King's Landing within the fortnight. That night, Renly and Marjorie were married in Highgarden Sept. The ceremony was swift but lavish. Mace spared no expense. Afterward, there was feasting and drinking and celebration. While outside, ravens flew to every corner of the Reach carrying the news. Renly Baratheon had crowned himself king of the Seven Kingdom, and the largest army in Westeros stood behind him. In the marriage chamber, after the bedding ceremony was complete and the witnesses had departed, Renly and Marjorie sat together, still dressed in their wedding finery. This won't be a real marriage, Renly said quietly. You know that. I know, Marjorie replied. She didn't seem bothered. You prefer my brother's company to mine. I don't care. All I need from you is an heir eventually. Can you manage that? When the time comes, Renly said. For now we have a war to win and a throne to take. How long before we march? 2 weeks to gather the full strength of the Reach, Renly said. Mace claims he can field 80,000 men, with another 20,000 Stormlords who'll join once they see which way the wind blows. We'll march to King's Landing with 100,000 soldiers and take the city without bloodshed. And if Tywin opposes you, then we crush him, Renly said simply. No, one can stand against 100,000 men. Not Tywin, not Stannis, not the North. We'll end this war in a single campaign, and I'll sit the Iron Throne before winter. Marjorie smiled. Then I'll be queen before winter. I can live with that. They sat in comfortable silence, two people bound by ambition rather than love, planning how to seize a kingdom and reshape the world according to their vision. Outside, the Reach prepared for war, and in the distance the rest of the realm scrambled to respond to this new player in the Game of Thrones. The news reached Winterfell via Raven from Casterly Rock, or rather from Tywin's agents who had intercepted a Highgarden Raven meant for King's Landing. Maester Luwin brought it to Ned in his solar, where he sat with Catelyn, Stannis, and Robb. The message was brief and devastating. Renly Baratheon has crowned himself king at Highgarden. He married Marjorie Tyrell. The Reach has declared for him. They march for King's Landing with 80,000 men. The solar went silent. Stannis' face darkened like a thundercloud. That little shit. That preening, arrogant, worthless little shit. He's your brother, Ned said mildly. He's a traitor, Stannis snarled. He has no claim. I am Robert's heir. By every law of gods and men, I am the rightful king. And Renly was never even supposed to be in the succession. He's third in line. He has no right. He has 80,000 swords, Robb observed. That's a right army's respect. This changes everything, Catelyn said. She looked at Ned. We're planning to fight Tywin with northern forces supporting Stannis' claim. But if Renly takes King's Landing first, if he sits on the Iron Throne with the Reach's support, every southern lord will flock to him. He'll have legitimacy through possession and strength through numbers. He'll have neither, Stannis said coldly. He's a usurper. I'll deal with him the same way Robert dealt with the Mad King. I'll kill him and take what's mine. He's your brother, Ned repeated, more firmly this time. So was Robert, and I would have killed him too if he'd tried to steal my birthright, Stannis said. His jaw was clenched so tight Ned could hear his teeth grinding. Renly thinks he can charm his way onto a throne. I'll show him what happens to charming corpses. We need to think strategically, Ned said. He moved to the map on the wall. 3 claimants now. Stannis, with northern support and 5,000 men of his own. Joffrey, backed by the Lannisters and whatever Stormlords Kevan can rally. And Renly with the Reach and his own Stormlords. That's 3 separate armies with 3 separate objectives. We could win this, Robb said slowly, if we play it right. Let Renly and Tywin fight each other. They both want King's Landing. When they clash, we hit the winner while they're weakened. No, Stannis said flatly. We march south immediately. We take King's Landing before Renly does. We secure the throne for the rightful heir, me, and we deal with the Lannisters afterward. We can't march south, Ned said. Our strength is in defense. Moat Cailin protects us. Winter is coming. The longer we delay, the harder it becomes for southern armies to campaign in the north. If we march south, we abandon our greatest advantage. And if we don't march south, Renly takes the throne, and we're left with scraps. Stannis countered. The throne belongs to me, Lord Stark. I supported your rebellion because your cause was just. But my price was always your support for my claim. Are you backing out now? I'm not backing out, Ned said carefully. But I won't throw away northern lives in a race we can't win. Renly is closer to King's Landing. He has more men. He'll get there first. That's reality. Then we take it from him, Stannis said. With what army? Catelyn demanded. Lord Stannis, you have 5,000 men? We have perhaps 20,000 in the north. Against Renly's 100,000, we'd be slaughtered. Numbers aren't everything. They are when the disparity is that large. Catelyn interrupted. We need a different strategy, one that doesn't involve suicide charges against overwhelming force. Stannis glared at her, then at Ned, then at Robb, his fists clenched and unclenched. What do you suggest? He finally ground out. We wait, Ned said. We hold the north. We fortify Moat Cailin. We make ourselves unassailable. And we watch while Renly and Tywin tear each other apart. When they're both exhausted, when winter has made southern campaigning impossible, then we negotiate from strength. Negotiate, Stannis said the word like a curse. I don't negotiate for what's mine by right. Then you'll die for what's yours by right, Ned said bluntly. Because if you march south with 5,000 men thinking righteousness will carry the day, you'll be dead within a month. Tywin will kill you. Or Renly will. And then where does your claim go? Stannis's glare could have melted steel. But he said nothing. We're not abandoning your claim, Ned continued. We're being smart about it. Let Renly have his moment. Let him sit on the throne and call himself king. It won't last. The moment he has to actually govern, to make hard decisions, to balance competing interests, he'll fail. He's never run anything bigger than a council position. He's all charm and no substance. Give him time and he'll collapse on his own. And if he doesn't, Stannis demanded. Then we fight him, Ned said. But we fight him when winter has sapped his army's strength. When his supply lines are stretched impossibly thin. When his southern lords are freezing in their armor and begging to go home. We fight him on our terms, not his. Stannis stood rigid, every muscle tense. Ned could see the war inside him. Pride versus pragmatism, righteousness versus survival. Finally, Stannis nodded once. Sharp, angry. Fine. We hold the north. We wait. But know this, Lord Stark. Every day Renly sits on that throne is a day of usurpation. A day of injustice. And when the time comes to march south, I expect your full support. No half measures, no hesitation. We take back what's mine. You have my word, Ned said. After Stannis stormed out, Catelyn touched Ned's arm. He's going to be a problem. He's our only chance, Ned replied. Stannis is rigid and unforgiving, but he's honest. He keeps his word. And he's a brilliant commander when he's not blinded by fury. If we can channel that fury at our enemies instead of our allies, we might actually survive this. And if we can't, then we've allied with a man who'll destroy us as surely as Tywin would, Ned admitted. But that's the gamble we took. Now we live with it. Robb had been silent through the exchange. Now he spoke. Father, what about Jon? If we're not marching south, if we're staying in the north, what role does he play? Ned looked at his son. Jon stays here. Protected. Safe. That's the whole point of everything we've done. Keep him alive, in a castle while the rest of us fight, isn't going to work, Robb said. The men need to see him. Need to understand what we're fighting for. He needs to be visible. A symbol. He's 14 years old, Catelyn protested. He's the reason we're at war, Robb countered. And he needs to be more than a boy hiding in his room. He needs to be Jon Stark, legitimized, recognized, someone the North can rally behind. Right now, he's just a name, a reason. He needs to become a person worth following. Ned considered his son's words. Robb was right. Jon couldn't hide forever. The war was happening because of him. He needed to participate in it, where the men would start to resent protecting someone who wouldn't protect himself. I'll talk to him, Ned said finally. See if he's ready. But Robb, he's not you. He wasn't raised to lead armies. He needs time. Time is what we don't have, Robb said. But I'll help him. Train with him. Teach him. We'll make him ready together. Ned nodded. His sons, both his sons, Trueborn and Not, preparing for war together. It was what Lyanna would have wanted, what honor demanded. But gods, he wished it didn't have to be this way. He wished his children could grow up in peace, not war. Could live lives unmarred by the Game of Thrones and the endless grinding machinery of violence that turned boys into corpses and corpses into songs. But wishes changed nothing. The war was here. And all Ned could do was try to keep his family alive through it. Outside, snow fell heavy on Winterfell's walls. Winter was coming. And with it, the true test of whether the North could stand alone against the world. The River's Run Red Tywin Lannister's army crossed into the Riverlands like a plague. 35,000 men marched in disciplined columns down the river road, their banners a sea of crimson and gold. At their head rode Tywin himself, mounted on a great warhorse, his armor polished to mirror brightness. Beside him rode Sir Kevan, commanding the center. Behind them came the great lords of the Westerlands, Crakehall, Lefford, Marbrand, each leading their household troops. They moved with ruthless efficiency, 12 miles per day, the wagons groaning under the weight of supplies. Foragers ranged ahead, stripping farms and villages of food. Anything they couldn't carry, they burned. The message was clear. The Riverlands would pay for supporting traitors. Sir Gregor Clegane's raids intensified. The Mountain led 200 heavy cavalry on a rampage through the eastern territories, hitting villages that had barely recovered from his previous attacks. At a hamlet near the God's Eye, his men herded the entire population into the sept and barred the doors. Then they set it alight. The screams could be heard for miles. Survivors, the few who escaped, fled west carrying stories of Lannister brutality. Within days, every smallfolk family within 50 miles was abandoning their homes, heading for River Run or deeper into friendly territory. The roads clogged with refugees, slowing Tywin's advance but also stripping the land of anyone who might offer intelligence to Tully forces. At River Run, Edmure Tully received reports of the devastation with mounting horror. They're animals, he said, staring at the map where markers showed burned villages. Monsters. We have to stop them. We can't, Brynden Blackfish said flatly. He stood across the table, his weathered face grim. We don't have the numbers to face Tywin in open battle. If we march out to contest him, he'll destroy us. So we just let him burn our lands? Let our people die? Yes, Brynden said. The word was harsh but honest. That's exactly what we do. Because if we lose our army trying to save a few villages, we lose everything. Tywin knows this. He's baiting us, trying to make us emotional, trying to make us stupid. There has to be something. There is, Brynden interrupted. We harass him. Mark Piper and Carol Vance are already hitting his supply trains. Last night they burned 3 wagons carrying grain near Stonehenge. The night before they killed a patrol of 20 men and vanished before reinforcements arrived. We can't stop Tywin's advance, but we can make him bleed for every mile. Edmure slammed his fist on the table. It's not enough. It's all we can do until the North sends help, Brynden said. And even then, we're outnumbered. Tywin has 35,000 men, and that's before the Reach joins him. We have 20,000 at most. The math doesn't favor us, nephew. A runner entered, breathless. My lords. Sir Gregor is moving again. His force is heading toward Derry. They're burning everything in their path. How many men? Brynden asked. 200 cavalry. Maybe a few hundred infantry following to occupy what he takes. Send word to Mark Piper, Brynden said immediately. Tell him to shadow Clegane's force, but don't engage. I want to know where Gregor camps tonight. After the runner left, Edmure looked at his uncle. What are you planning? Gregor's getting bold, Brynden said. He's pushing deep into our territory with only 200 men because he thinks we're too scared to challenge him. He's probably right. But tonight, I'm going to teach the Mountain that boldness has a price. You're going to attack him? I'm going to try to kill him, Brynden said. Gregor Clegane is 8 feet tall and impossible to miss. He's also Tywin's most effective terror weapon. Remove him, and we hurt Lannister morale significantly. More importantly, we prove to our own men that the Lannisters can bleed. It's risky. Everything in war is risky, Brynden replied. But this is calculated risk. Gregor campaigns with a small force because he's arrogant. That arrogance is a weakness. We exploit it. That night, Brynden Tully rode out with 300 picked men. Cavalry, skilled riders who knew the land. Mark Piper's scouts had located Gregor's camp in a clearing near the ruins of an old holdfast. The mountain's men had made camp carelessly, confident in their strength, posting only a few sentries. Brynden split his force into 3 groups. 100 men would hit from the north, driving the Lannister soldiers toward the river. Another 100 would block the southern escape route, and Brynden himself would lead the final 100 straight into the camp's center, aiming for Gregor's pavilion. They struck 2 hours before dawn, when men slept deepest. The northern force galloped into the camp with torches blazing, throwing fire onto tents and wagons. Men stumbled from their bedrolls, grabbing for weapons, shouting in confusion. The southern blocking force cut down anyone who tried to flee that direction. And Brynden's central force charged straight for the largest pavilion, where the mountains slept. Except Gregor wasn't sleeping. The pavilion's flap tore open and the mountain emerged, already armored, his greatsword in hand. He was massive, 8 feet of muscle and fury, his armor blackened steel that seemed to drink the torchlight. When he saw Brynden's charge, he roared, "Tully, come die!" Brynden's riders tried to surround him. Gregor's sword swept in a great arc, catching the first horse across the chest. The animal screamed and went down, throwing its rider. The second rider thrust with a lance. Gregor caught the lance shaft, snapped it like kindling, and yanked the rider from his saddle. He hurled the man into 2 other horsemen, bowling them over. "Fall back!" Brynden shouted. "Archers, bring him down!" Arrows hissed through the darkness. Most bounced off Gregor's armor. One struck his shoulder joint and stuck. Gregor roared again, yanked the arrow free, and charged toward the archers. He was terrifyingly fast for a man his size. He caught one archer before the man could knock another arrow, grabbed him by the throat and crushed his windpipe with one hand. Then he swung his sword in a wide circle, forcing the other archers back. "We're not killing him tonight," Mark Piper said, appearing at Brynden's side. "We need to go, now, before his men rally." Brynden knew he was right. The raid had done damage, dozens of Lannister soldiers dead, tents burned, supplies destroyed. But Gregor still lived. And more importantly, Lannister reinforcements were likely already moving toward the sound of battle. "Retreat," Brynden called. "Back to the horses. Move!" They withdrew in good order, leaving behind a camp in chaos and a furious Gregor Clegane swearing vengeance. As they rode for River Run, Brynden counted his losses. 20 men dead, another 30 wounded. Not a catastrophic toll, but not the decisive victory he'd hoped for either. "We hurt them," Mark Piper said as they rode. "Killed maybe 70 of theirs. Burned their supplies. Made them scared to sleep. That counts. It counts," Brynden agreed. "But Gregor's still alive, still terrorizing our people. We need to try again. Next time bring 300 archers," Mark said grimly. "Fill that bastard so full of arrows he looks like a porcupine. It's the only way." When they reached River Run at dawn, Edmure was waiting with news. "Tywin's divided his forces," Edmure said. He pointed to the map. "The main army, 20,000 men under his personal command, is advancing on Harrenhal. He's secured it. The castle's huge enough to house his entire force, and it controls the God's Eye region and the King's Road south." "Smart," Brynden admitted. "Harrenhal is centrally located. He can strike north toward the Twins, east toward the Trident, or south toward King's Landing from there. He's turned it into his operational base." "And the second force?" Brynden asked. 15,000 men under Sir Cavan, Edmure said. "They're marching west, toward us. They'll be at our gates within a week." The enormity of it settled over them. Tywin had split his army perfectly. The main force at Harrenhal could respond to any threat while Kevan besieged River Run. The Tullys would be trapped, unable to effectively strike either force without exposing themselves to the other. "He's boxing us in," Brynden said. "Classic Tywin. He doesn't need to destroy us immediately. He just needs to contain us while he secures the rest of the Riverlands. Then he can deal with us at his leisure." "We need help," Edmure said. "From the north." "From Stannis? Someone." "The north is a month's march away," Brynden reminded him. "And Stannis is busy consolidating his position on Dragonstone and preparing his fleet. We're on our own for now." "Then we hold," Edmure said. "We hold River Run. We make Cavan pay for every day he spends besieging us, and we pray the Lannisters run out of patience before we run out of food. How long can we hold? Brynden asked. 2 years if we're careful with rationing, Edmure said. Riverrun's granaries are full. The water supply is unlimited. We control the rivers, and the castle can be flooded to become an island if we need to. Tywin can besiege us until the 7 hells freeze over. We're not surrendering. Then we make our stand here, Brynden said, and we trust that when the time comes, the North remembers its allies. At Harrenhal, Tywin established his headquarters in the castle's great hall. The hall was enormous, large enough to house 1,000 men with room to spare. Its ceiling soared so high that the rafters were lost in shadow. The walls were thick black stone, burned and melted by dragonfire during Aegon's conquest, giving the entire structure a nightmarish quality. Tywin sat at the high table, reviewing reports from his commanders. Ser Cavan had reached Riverrun and begun establishing siege lines. Gregor had resumed his raids despite the Tully ambush. Sir Amory Lorch commanded the garrison at Harrenhal itself. 2,000 men to hold the castle while Tywin used it as his base. A raven arrived from King's Landing. Tywin read it, his expression darkening. Renly has crowned himself, he said to Cavan, who had ridden back from the siege lines for this meeting. Married Marjorie Tyrell. The Reach has declared for him. 80,000 men are marching for King's Landing. Cavan's face went pale. 80,000? Plus whatever Stormlords join him along the way, Tywin said. Call it 100,000 total. The largest army assembled since Aegon's conquest. What do? We adapt, Tywin said calmly. Though inside, his mind raced. 100,000 men under Renly's command changed everything. The Lannisters could not fight the North, Stannis, and Renly simultaneously. The numbers simply didn't work. We need the Reach, Cavan said. Without them, we're outnumbered on all sides. The Reach has already chosen, Tywin said. Mace Tyrell wants a queen. Renly promised him one. We can't match that offer. Joffrey's already betrothed to Sansa Stark in the original arrangement, though that's obviously void now. We could offer Myrcella. Myrcella is 8 years old, Tywin interrupted. The Tyrells want influence now, not in a decade. No, the Reach is lost to us. We need to make different arrangements, such as, we secure the Riverlands completely, Tywin said. Crush House Tully, force Stark to either march south, away from his stronghold, or abandon his wife's family. Either choice weakens him. Then we consolidate our position and negotiate with Renly from a position of strength. Negotiate? Kevin looked shocked. You'd recognize his claim? I'd recognize reality, Tywin said coldly. If Renly takes King's Landing with 100,000 men, he has the throne. Not by right, but by possession. And possession is 9/10 of legitimacy. We can either fight a war we cannot win, or we can make terms that preserve House Lannister's power within Renly's regime. What terms? Cersei and the children are freed from Winterfell in exchange for recognizing Renly's claim, Tywin said. Jaime is returned. The Westerlands maintains autonomy. And House Lannister retains positions of influence, master of coin, perhaps master of ships. We bend the knee, but we keep our power. The men won't like it, Kevin warned, bending the knee to a usurper. After everything we've done to support Joffrey's claim. The men will do what I tell them, Tywin said flatly. And what I'm telling them is to survive. Pride is expensive. I won't bankrupt House Lannister paying for it. A commotion outside interrupted them, shouting, the clash of steel. Tywin was on his feet instantly, his hand moving to his sword. Sir Amory Lorch burst through the doors, his face flushed. My lord, the northern prisoners, the ones we took from Gregor's raids. They're rioting in the dungeons. Some of our guards have been killed. How many prisoners? Tywin demanded. Perhaps 200. Men, women, children. We've been using them for labor, clearing rubble and working the fields. Put down the riot, Tywin said. Use whatever force necessary. And, Sir Amory, no more prisoners. From now on, anyone we capture dies. We don't have the resources to guard them. My lord, Amory looked uncertain. Even the women, the children? Everyone, Tywin said. This is war. We don't take prisoners we can't afford to keep. Make sure the men understand. If they capture small folk during raids, they kill them. Quickly, cleanly if possible. But dead either way. After Amory left, Kevin spoke carefully. Brother, that's a hard order. It's a necessary order, Tywin replied. Every prisoner we take is a mouth to feed and a potential security risk. We're deep in enemy territory with supply lines that are already stretched. I won't weaken our position further by playing at chivalry. The men will talk. Stories will spread about Lannister brutality. Let them, Tywin said. Fear is a weapon. The more the Riverlands fears us, the less they'll resist, and that saves lives in the long run, ours and theirs. Quick brutality now prevents prolonged suffering later. Kevan said nothing. He had served his brother long enough to know when argument was futile. Tywin had made his decision. The order would stand. That night, the sounds of the riot being suppressed echoed through Harrenhal's corridors. Screams, pleading, the wet thud of swords striking flesh. By dawn, 200 prisoners lay dead in the dungeons, their bodies thrown into the God's Eye to avoid disease. The soldiers who had carried out the executions wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. They had killed armed enemies before. That was war. But killing unarmed prisoners, including women and children, left a stain that water couldn't wash away. Word of the massacre spread quickly. Within days, every village in the Riverlands knew that the Lannisters took no prisoners, that surrender meant death, that the only choices were fight or flee. And so they fled. Thousands of small folk abandoned their homes, streaming toward River Run, or north toward the Twins. The land emptied. Fields went unplanted. Mills stood idle. The Riverlands began to starve, slowly but surely. Tywin watched it happen with cold satisfaction. An empty land could not support an army. When the North finally marched south, they would find no food, no shelter, no aid. They would starve in a wasteland of the Lannisters' making. Scorched earth, Kevan said, watching smoke rise from a distant village that Gregor's men had just burned. You're turning the Riverlands into a desert. I'm turning it into a barrier, Tywin corrected. By the time we're done, the Riverlands will be so devastated that no army can cross it. The North will be cut off from the South permanently. Stark will be contained, and we'll have bought ourselves time to deal with Renly. At what cost? At whatever cost is necessary, Tywin said. I didn't rebuild House Lannister by being squeamish. I did it by being willing to do what others wouldn't, to make the hard choices. To accept that power requires blood. He looked at his brother. You remember the rains. You were there when we drowned them in their mines. I remember, Kevan said quietly. And do you remember what I told you that day? When you asked if we had to kill them all? You said that mercy was a luxury only the strong could afford, Kevan replied. And that we weren't strong enough yet. We're strong now, Tywin said. Stronger than we've ever been. But strength requires maintenance. It requires demonstrating to the world that we will do whatever it takes to preserve our position. The Riverlands will remember this. They'll remember that House Lannister does not forgive, does not forget, and does not lose. And if we're wrong, if Renly wins, if the North prevails, then we were never as strong as we thought, Tywin said, and we'll deserve what happens to us. But I don't believe that. I believe we'll win, because we're willing to pay the price of victory, and our enemies aren't. At River Run, the siege began. Ser Kevan established his siege lines with methodical precision. 15,000 men surrounded the castle on all sides except the river approach, which was blocked by a boom chain stretched across the water. Siege engines, trebuchets, and catapults were assembled just out of bow range. The bombardment started on the third day. Stones weighing 200 pounds arced through the air and crashed into River Run's walls. The walls held. They were thick stone, built to withstand such attacks, but the constant hammering was wearing. Day and night the stones came, smashing into ramparts, crushing merlins, occasionally finding a window and killing whoever was unlucky enough to be inside. Edmure walked the walls, inspecting damage, encouraging his men. They held strong despite the bombardment, but he could see the fear in their eyes. This was just the beginning. Kevan could keep this up for months. We need to strike back, Edmure said to Brynden in the war room that evening. We can't just sit here and take it. What would you suggest? Brynden asked. A sally. We'd be slaughtered. Kevan has 3 men for every one of ours out there. The moment we open the gates, he'll pour troops in. Then we use the rivers, Edmure said. Small boats. Raid his camps at night. Kill his sentries. Keep him off balance. We've been doing that, Brynden said. Every night we send out raiders. We've killed maybe 100 of his men so far. It's not enough. We need something bigger. Like what? Like this. Brynden said. He pointed to the map. Kevan's supply train arrives every 3 days from Harrenhal. Wagons carrying food, arrows, replacement weapons. It's guarded, but not heavily, maybe 200 men. If we could intercept it, we'd cut off his supplies, Edmure finished. Force him to either shorten his siege lines or starve. Exactly. But to do it, we need to send a significant force out of the castle, which means opening the gates, which is risky. How many men? Edmure asked. 1,000 cavalry, Brynden said. Fast riders who can hit the supply train, burn everything, and get back before Cavan can respond. I'll lead them personally. Uncle, if something goes wrong, you're the Lord of Riverrun, and you hold this castle until the North arrives or we all die trying, Brynden said bluntly. But nothing's going to go wrong. I've raided supply trains before. This is what I do, Edmure wanted to argue. Wanted to keep his uncle safe behind walls. But he knew Brynden was right. Passive defense would lose this siege. They needed to be aggressive, take risks, hurt the enemy wherever possible. When? Edmure asked. Tomorrow night, Brynden said. The next supply train is due. We'll hit it at midnight, when Kevan's men are least alert. The next night, Riverrun's Watergate opened silently. 1,000 cavalry filed out in darkness, led by Brynden Blackfish. They rode north along the river road, moving quietly, keeping to shadows. 3 hours later, they found the supply train, 20 wagons guarded by 200 Lannister soldiers. The guards had made camp for the night, confident in their numbers. Most were asleep. Brynden's force hit them like a hammer. Cavalry charged from 3 directions simultaneously. The Lannister guards scrambled to respond, but were overwhelmed in minutes. Tully soldiers set fire to the wagons, flames leaping high into the night sky. Foodstuffs burned. Arrows exploded in their crates. Barrels of oil burst, feeding the flames. The entire supply train was consumed in less than an hour. Brynden rallied his men and withdrew, leaving behind 100 dead Lannister soldiers and nothing but burning wreckage. They made it back to Riverrun before dawn, slipping through the Watergate and sealing it behind them. When Kevan learned of the raid, his face went cold. Double the guards on the next supply train, he ordered. 500 men minimum. And tell them to expect attacks. We're not losing another shipment. But the damage was done. Kevan's army had been counting on those supplies. Now they would have to tighten rations, make the siege equipment last longer, push harder to break Riverrun's walls before their own strength failed. Inside Riverrun, Edmure embraced his uncle as the men cheered. We hurt them. Actually hurt them. We did, Brynden agreed, but Kevan will adapt. He'll strengthen his guards, make it harder to raid. We got one victory. Don't expect many more. One is enough to show it can be done, Edmure said. The men needed this. Needed to feel like we're not just sitting here waiting to die. We're not, Brynden said. We're bleeding the Lannisters. Slowly, making them pay for every day they spend here. And when the North arrives, if the North arrives, we'll have weakened them enough that we might actually win. Do you believe that? Edmure asked quietly. That we can win. Brynden looked at his nephew, at the young man who had been thrust into command too soon, who carried the weight of their house on unprepared shoulders. I believe we can survive, Brynden said, and sometimes survival is victory enough. Far to the south, Renly Baratheon's army marched for King's Landing. 100,000 men moved like a nation on the march. The Reach had emptied itself to field this host. Lords Tarly, Rowan, Hightower, Redwyne, Florent, and dozens more, each bringing thousands of soldiers. The columns stretched for miles, banners bright in the sun, armor gleaming. At the army's head rode Renly himself, crowned and magnificent in his green and gold armor. Beside him rode Margaery, his queen, mounted on a white mare and dressed in silk that must have cost a fortune. They looked like a painting from a children's tale. The handsome king and beautiful queen leading their army to victory. Behind them came Mace Tyrell, Lord of Highgarden, looking enormously pleased with himself. His sons Garland and Loras flanked him. Sir Loras wore the white cloak of the Kingsguard now. Renly had appointed him Lord Commander as one of his first acts as king. It was nepotism of the highest order, but no one complained. Loras was skilled enough to deserve the position, even if the appointment reeked of favoritism. They made good time. 12 miles a day, same as any army with wagons. But their sheer size meant that when they camped at night, their tents covered square miles of territory. Villages they passed emptied immediately, small folk fleeing at the sight of 100,000 armed men, unable to tell if they were liberators or conquerors. Renly sent riders ahead with proclamations. The rightful King Renly Baratheon marches to claim his throne. All loyal subjects are commanded to give aid. Those who resist will be considered traitors. Most villages chose not to resist. They gave what supplies they could spare, or what could be taken, and prayed the army would pass quickly. "We're stripping the land," Garland observed one evening as they made camp. He and Renly stood on a hill overlooking the sprawling military city below. "These people can't afford to feed us. They'll be reimbursed once I'm on the throne," Renly said easily. "Royal compensation for loyal subjects. I'll be generous. They'll love me for it. If we win," Garland said. "When we win," Renly corrected. "Look at this army, Garland. 100,000 men. No one can stand against us. Tywin's tied down in the Riverlands. Stannis is skulking in the north with a fraction of our strength. King's Landing sits ahead of us, barely defended. We'll take the city without bloodshed. The small folk will open the gates and welcome us with flowers. And if they don't, then we knock the gates down," Renly said. His smile never wavered. "But they will, because I'm not Tywin Lannister. I don't sack cities and murder children. I'm the king they want, young, handsome, merciful. They'll love me. You'll see." Garland wanted to believe him, wanted to think it would be that easy. But he had studied war, had spoken with men who remembered Robert's rebellion. Cities under siege didn't surrender easily. Fear made people do desperate things. "What about Stannis?" Garland asked. "Your brother won't accept this. He'll claim you're a usurper." "Stannis can claim whatever he wants from Dragonstone," Renly said dismissively. "He has 5,000 men and an island fortress. I have 100,000 men and the Reach's support. Let him sulk. When I'm crowned in King's Landing, when lords from all over the realm bend the knee, he'll see reason. Or he'll die alone and bitter, which is honestly what he's been doing his whole life anyway. He's your brother." "He's a rival," Renly said coldly. For just a moment, the charm dropped away, and Garland saw calculation behind his eyes. "Stannis wants the throne because he thinks it's his by right. But rights don't matter. Power matters. Whoever holds King's Landing with sufficient force is the king. That's the only law that matters." "That's exactly what Stannis thinks," Garland pointed out. "That law and right and justice matter above all else." "Then he's a fool," Renly said. "And fools don't get to be king." They reached the outskirts of King's Landing 16 days after leaving Highgarden. The city sprawled before them, its walls high and strong, the Red Keep rising above it all like a crown. The population was 500,000 souls, more people than lived in the entire north. As Renly's army approached, the city bells began ringing. Whether in welcome or alarm was unclear. Renly called a halt 3 miles from the walls, out of trebuchet range but close enough to be seen. His pavilion was erected, a massive structure of green silk embroidered with golden stags. Inside, he held council with his commanders. "We're here," Renly said, looking around the table at Mace, Garland, Loras, Randyll Tarly, and the other great lords. "The city lies before us. How do we take it?" "Siege," Randyll Tarly said immediately. "The Lord of Horn Hill was a severe man, hard as old leather. Surround the walls. Cut off supplies. Wait until they're desperate enough to surrender." "That could take months," Mace protested. "We don't have time for a long siege. Tywin could march on us. The North could intervene. We need to take the city quickly." "Storm the walls," Loras suggested. "Build ladders. Scale the gates. Overwhelm the defenders with numbers. And kill thousands of our own men in the process," Garland said. "King's Landing has never fallen to direct assault. The walls are too strong. We'd lose 10,000 men, minimum, maybe more." "What about the gates?" Renly asked. "Can we bribe the gold cloaks to open them?" "Worth trying," Mace said. "The City Watch is notoriously corrupt." 6,000 gold dragons was the price Littlefinger quoted for their loyalty back when all this started. "We can afford that." "Then send a messenger under flag of truce," Renly decided. "Offer Commander Slint 10,000 gold dragons to open the gates. And offer the small folk a proclamation. I'm coming to feed them, not sack the city. Anyone who opposes me faces the crown's justice, but anyone who supports me will be rewarded." "You're assuming they'll believe you," Randyll said skeptically. "The small folk remember what Robert's army did when they took the city during the rebellion. The sack of King's Landing. They might decide they're safer behind walls than welcoming us in." Then we show them we're different, Renly said. We don't raid the surrounding villages. We pay for what we take. We discipline any soldier who harms a civilian. We prove we're not Tywin Lannister. We're better. Pretty words, Randall said. But if they don't open the gates, what then? Then we use the pretty words as cover while we build siege engines, Renly said. His voice was harder now. We offer peace. We offer mercy. And if they refuse both, we break their walls and take the city by force. But we offer first. Always offer first. That way, when we burn their gates down, history records that we tried. The council agreed. A messenger was dispatched under white flag carrying Renly's terms. The offer was simple. Surrender the city peacefully, keep Joffrey and the royal family as honored guests, recognize Renly as king. In return, the city would be spared, the small folk protected, and the existing government left mostly intact. Inside King's Landing, the small council received the message with varying reactions. We should accept, Littlefinger said immediately. Renly has 100,000 men outside our walls. We have 6,000 gold cloaks and maybe 2,000 household guards. The math is simple. We have walls, Ser Cavan said stubbornly, and King's Landing has never fallen to siege. It's never been besieged by 100,000 men before, Littlefinger countered. This is unprecedented. If we refuse, Renly will starve us out. The city has food for perhaps 3 months, less if rationing fails. After that, the small folk riot and open the gates themselves. We have to fight, Cavan insisted. For Prince Joffrey. For the legitimate heir is 12 years old and may or may not be Robert's son, Littlefinger said bluntly. Meanwhile, Renly is outside with an army that could crush everything inside these walls in a day. We need to be realistic. Lord Tywin is in the Riverlands fighting the Tullys, Littlefinger interrupted. He's weeks away even if he marches immediately. By the time he gets here, Renly will have taken the city and crowned himself in the Sept of Baelor. It's over, Ser Cavan. We lost. Varys spoke softly from his corner. Perhaps not. Perhaps there is another way. What way? Kevan demanded. We make terms, Varys said. We negotiate. Renly wants the throne. We give it to him. In exchange, he guarantees the safety of the royal family. Cersei and her children return to Casterly Rock unharmed. Jaime is released from Winterfell. The Westerlands keeps its autonomy. House Lannister bends the knee but maintains its power and wealth. That's surrender, Cavan said. That's survival, Varys replied. The alternative is the city burns, the small folk die, and House Lannister is destroyed completely. Is pride worth that cost? Cavan looked around the table. At Littlefinger, who clearly agreed with Varys. At Pycelle, who was too frightened to offer an opinion. At the empty seats where Stannis and Renly and Robert should have been. I need to send a raven to Lord Tywin, Cavan said finally. This decision is his to make. Send it, Varys agreed. But send it quickly. Renly will not wait forever for an answer. And if we delay too long, he may decide negotiation is pointless and simply break down our gates. The raven flew that night, carrying Kevin's desperate message to Harrenhal. But ravens took time, and time was the one thing King's Landing didn't have. Outside the walls, Renly's army settled in for siege. They began building trebuchets and battering rams, not quickly, but methodically, making sure the city could see their preparations. The psychological pressure was immense. Inside, the small folk began to panic. Bread prices tripled overnight. Fights broke out at the markets. The gold cloaks struggled to maintain order, and in the Red Keep, Ser Kevan paced his chambers and wondered if he had the authority to surrender a kingdom, or if pride would kill them all before Tywin's reply arrived. Winter's approach at Winterfell, Jon Snow stood in the training yard with a practice sword while 50 northern soldiers watched. He had avoided this for weeks, stayed in his chambers, studied with Maester Luwin. Anything to avoid being visible, being judged, being the boy whose existence had started a war. But Robb had insisted, and Ned had agreed. And so here he stood, facing Robb in the yard while Ghost sat at the edge, watching with red eyes. Ready? Robb asked. He held his own practice sword easily, relaxed. Jon nodded. They circled each other. Robb struck first, a testing blow, easily blocked. Jon riposted. Robb deflected and countered. They moved through familiar patterns, the dance of training they had done 1,000 times. But this time was different. This time, every soldier watching knew who Jon was, knew what he represented. Jon could feel their eyes on him, judging, measuring, wondering if Lyanna Stark's son was worth the war they were fighting. Robb pressed harder, forcing Jon to give ground. Jon's foot caught on uneven ground and he stumbled. Robb's sword came down in an overhead strike that would have split Jon's head if it had been steel instead of wood. Jon rolled, came up, and struck at Robb's knee. Robb jumped back, surprised. Jon pressed forward, attacking now instead of defending. His sword blurred, high strike, low strike, feint and thrust. Robb blocked desperately, retreating. Then Robb's training took over. He caught Jon's blade, twisted, and disarmed him. Jon's practiced sword flew through the air. Robb's blade stopped an inch from Jon's throat. "Yield," Robb said. "I yield," Jon said. The watching soldiers applauded, not mockingly, genuinely. Jon had lost, but he'd fought well. Shown courage. Shown skill. It was more than many had expected from a boy of 14. Robb helped Jon up, clapping him on the shoulder. "Good. You're getting faster." "Not fast enough," Jon muttered. "Fast enough to give me trouble," Robb said, "which is all anyone can ask." He raised his voice so the soldiers could hear. "This is Jon Stark, my brother. He's training with us because when the Lannisters come, he'll stand on these walls with the rest of us. He bleeds Stark blood, and he'll fight for the North." "For the North," the soldiers chorused. Some even smiled at Jon. Jon felt something in his chest loosen slightly. Not acceptance. Not yet. But the beginning of it. Didn't blame him. They saw him as one of their own. After training, Jon found Stannis Baratheon waiting in the covered walkway. The king who should be king stood with his arms crossed, his face carved from granite. "You fight adequately," Stannis said. It wasn't a compliment or an insult. Just observation. "Thank you, Lord Stannis," Jon said carefully. "I'm not a lord. I'm a king," Stannis corrected. "And you're the reason I'm stuck in this frozen wasteland instead of taking what's mine in King's Landing." Jon said nothing. What could he say? It was true. "Do you want the throne?" Stannis asked abruptly. "No," Jon said immediately. "I don't want any throne. I just want to live." "Wanting to live and being willing to fight for it are different things," Stannis said. "I've been watching you. You train. You learn. But you're tentative. Afraid, as if you're apologizing for existing." "Maybe I am," Jon said quietly. "Then stop," Stannis said flatly. "You didn't ask to be born. You didn't ask for your father's blood. But you have it anyway, and that blood makes you dangerous to everyone, me included. The only way you survive is if you become dangerous enough that killing you costs more than tolerating you. How do I do that?" "By being useful," Stannis said. "By proving you're worth the trouble. Eddard Stark started a war to protect you. Don't make him regret it." He walked away, leaving Jon alone with Ghost. The dire wolf pressed against Jon's leg, a solid presence. "I don't know how to be worth a war," Jon whispered to Ghost. The wolf had no answer, but he stayed close as he always did, and that was enough. In the great hall that evening, Ned convened his war council. The northern lords gathered, the great Jon, Rose Bolton, Mage Mormont, Rickard Karstark, Galbart Glover. Stannis sat apart from them, Davos Seaworth at his side. Catelyn stood beside Ned. Robb and Jon were also present. Ned had insisted. His sons needed to learn war. "We have reports from the south," Ned began. He gestured to Maester Luwin, who unrolled a map. "Tywin Lannister has divided his forces, 20,000 men at Harrenhal under his personal command. 15,000 besieging Riverrun under Ser Cavan. The Riverlands is burning." "How long can Riverrun hold?" the great Jon asked. 2 years if supplies last," Maester Luwin said. "The castle is self-sufficient. Water from the rivers. Granaries full. But the Tullys are trapped. They can't break the siege without help. Then we help them," the great Jon rumbled. "March south, hit Tywin while he's divided." "No," Stannis said flatly. "We hold the north. We fortify Moat Cailin. We make ourselves unassailable. Marching south abandons our advantage. Our advantage doesn't help the Riverlands," the great Jon shot back. "Cat's family is dying down there. We promised to support them." "And we will," Ned said. "But Stannis is right. We can't march the full northern army south. We'd be abandoning Moat Cailin, leaving the north vulnerable. If Tywin gets behind us, we're trapped between him and the twins. So what do we do?" Mage Mormont asked. Sit here while the Riverlands burns? We send a force, Robb said. Everyone turned to look at him. Not the whole army. 5,000 men. Fast cavalry. They ride south, link up with the Tullys, and harass Lannister supply lines. They don't fight pitched battles. They raid, burn wagons, kill scouts, make Tywin bleed for every mile he holds. 5,000 men isn't enough to break a siege, Roose Bolton observed. It's enough to make the siege expensive, Robb countered, and to show the Riverlands that the North keeps its promises, that we're not abandoning them. Who leads this force? Ned asked. I do, Robb said. No, Catelyn said immediately. Robb, you're the heir. You can't. I can and I will, Robb interrupted gently. Father, you need to stay here. You're Lord of Winterfell. The North needs you here to coordinate everything, and someone has to keep Stannis from doing something rash. Stannis' jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The Great Jon can lead. Ned started. The Great Jon is needed here, Robb said. To command Moat Cailin's garrison. We need someone who knows the Riverlands, who knows the Tullys, who can coordinate with them. That's me. I spent summers at Riverrun. I know Uncle Brynden. He'll trust me. Ned looked at his son. At 16, Robb looked older than his years. The war had aged him. Or perhaps responsibility had. He stood straight, confident, speaking with authority. If you go, Ned said slowly, you take experienced commanders. Galbart Glover goes with you, and Mage Mormont, and you follow their advice. This isn't glory-seeking, Robb. This is war. One mistake, and you're dead. I understand, Robb said. And you take Grey Wind, Catelyn added. And 50 men as your personal guard. Men you trust absolutely. I will, Robb promised. What about me? Jon asked quietly. All eyes turned to him. Do I stay here? Yes, Ned said immediately. No, Robb said at the same time. They looked at each other. Ned's expression was firm. Jon, you're safer here. I'm the reason for this war, Jon said. I should be part of it. If I hide in Winterfell while other men fight for me, I'm proving Stannis right, that I'm not worth the cost. You're 14 years old, Catelyn said. So is Bran, but he's learning to manage the household while we're gone, Jon countered. I'm not asking to lead men. I'm asking to fight, to show the North that I'm willing to bleed for the cause I represent. Absolutely not, Ned said. Everyone stared at him. The boy's right. He needs to prove himself. And honestly, he's safer with an army than sitting in a castle waiting to be ransomed or assassinated. Let him fight. If he dies, the problem solves itself. If he lives, he earns respect. That's cold, Catelyn said. That's practical, Stannis replied. Stop coddling him. The world certainly won't. Ned looked at Jon, really looked at him. Saw Lyanna's eyes staring back. Saw determination. Fear, yes, but also courage. The boy wanted to prove himself. Needed to prove himself. And maybe Stannis was right. Maybe hiding him would only make things worse. If you go, Ned said slowly, you stay with Robb at all times. You don't take unnecessary risks. You follow orders, and Ghost goes with you. I will, Jon said. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. I won't let you down. See that you don't, Ned said, but inside his heart was breaking. He was sending his nephew, his sister's son, into war, into danger, into situations where a blade or an arrow could end everything. But what choice did he have? Jon needed this, and Ned had learned long ago that keeping someone in a cage, even for their own protection, eventually destroyed them. After the council ended, Catelyn pulled Ned aside. You're sending our son into war. And Jon. Both of them. I know, Ned said quietly. They could die. I know. And you're willing to accept that? No, Ned said. His voice was heavy with pain. I'll never accept it. But I can't stop it either. Robb's right. Someone needs to lead this force. And it needs to be someone the Tullys will trust. And Jon's right too. He can't hide forever. He needs to be part of this, or the men will start to resent dying for someone who won't fight himself. Catelyn closed her eyes. I hate this. I hate all of this. So do I, Ned said. He pulled her close. But we don't get to choose our wars. We only get to choose how we fight them. They stood together in the empty corridor, holding each other, finding what comfort they could. Outside, Winterfell prepared for the departures. 5,000 men would march south with Robb. The rest would garrison Moat Cailin and hold the north. Winter was coming, and with it the blood and fire that would determine whether the north survived or was crushed between the three kings tearing the realm apart. Robb's force departed Winterfell 3 days later. 5,000 cavalry, the best riders in the north. They traveled light, no wagons, minimal supplies. They would live off the land or resupply from friendly holdfasts. Speed was everything. They needed to reach the Riverlands before Tywin could consolidate his position further. Jon rode beside Robb, Ghost loping alongside his horse. Grey Wind ranged ahead with the scouts. Behind them came the Great Jon's son, also named Jon. Small Jon to differentiate him from Jon Snow. He was massive like his father, cheerful and deadly in equal measure. First time leaving the north? Small Jon asked Jon as they rode. Yes, Jon admitted. You'll love the south, Small Jon said with a grin. It's warm. The women are prettier. The wine is better. And there are so many people you can get lost in a crowd. We're not going south for tourism, Galbart Glover said dryly. The Lord of Deepwood Mott rode on Jon's other side, a practical man in his 40s. We're going to fight a war? Can't we do both? Small Jon asked. They made good time, 20 miles a day, pushing hard. The column moved with discipline. Northern cavalry were not as flashy as southern knights, but they were tough, practical, and knew how to survive harsh conditions. They reached Moat Cailin on the 5th day. The fortress controlled the causeway through the neck, the only safe passage between north and south. 3 massive towers rose from the swamp, connected by walls that were half ruined but still formidable. The causeway itself was narrow, easily defended. 100 men could hold it against thousands. The Great Jon was already there with 2,000 soldiers, fortifying the position. When he saw Robb's column approach, he rode out to meet them. About time, the Great Jon boomed. I was starting to think you'd chickened out. Just preparing, Robb said. How's the garrison? Solid. We've got 2,000 men here, with another 1,000 at Greywater Watch. The Crannog men are patrolling the swamps. Anyone tries to bypass Moat Cailin, they'll die in the bogs. The neck is sealed. Good, Robb said. Keep it that way. No one passes without my father's permission. No one. What if Tywin tries to march north? The Great Jon asked. He won't, Robb said. He's too smart. He knows Moat Cailin is a death trap for attackers. He'll try to cut us off from the Riverlands instead. That's why we're riding south, to keep that from happening. They stayed at Moat Cailin for one night, then pushed on. The causeway led them through the swamps, a miserable journey through sucking mud and clouds of biting insects. The horses struggled, the men cursed, but they kept moving. When they finally emerged from the neck into the Riverlands proper, the change was immediate. The land opened up, rolling hills, forests, rivers, richer than the north, more populated, and burning. They saw the first destroyed village 2 days south of the neck. It had been a small place, maybe 50 families. Now it was ash. The buildings were burned to foundations. Bodies lay in the street, men, women, children. Crows picked at the corpses. The smell was overwhelming. Jon dismounted and walked through the ruins. Ghost beside him. He had never seen death like this. Not murder. Not battle. Just slaughter. Meaningless slaughter. Gregor Clegane's work, Galbart Glover said quietly. He pointed to hoofprints in the mud. Heavy cavalry. Lannister read on some of the debris. This is what Tywin's raiders are doing. Terrorizing the small folk. Making them afraid to support the Tullys. Why? Jon asked. His voice shook. Why kill these people? They weren't soldiers. They weren't threats. Because fear is a weapon, Robb said. He looked sick but controlled. Tywin's showing the Riverlands what happens if they resist. Kill enough civilians and eventually the survivors stop fighting. They surrender. They collaborate. Anything to make it stop. It's evil, Jon said. It's war, Maejay Mormont said. She had dismounted as well, examining the bodies. This is what war looks like when the rules break down, when great lords decide victory matters more than honor. Remember this, boy. Remember what we're fighting against. They buried the dead. It took hours, digging graves in the cold earth, saying prayers to gods they weren't sure listened. When they finished, the sun was setting. We ride at dawn, Robb said. And from now on we travel fast. The sooner we reach River Run, the sooner we can start making Tywin pay for this. That night, Jon couldn't sleep. He kept seeing the bodies, kept hearing Mage's words. This is what war looks like. He had thought war was battles, swords clashing, honor and glory, and heroes making brave choices. But there was nothing honorable about burned children, nothing glorious about murdered farmers. You're learning, a voice said. Jon looked up. Stannis' red priestess, Melisandre, stood at the edge of the firelight. She had accompanied Robb's force. Stannis had insisted she go, though he remained at Winterfell, learning what war really costs. Good. The sooner you understand, the better. Why are you here? Jon asked. Because the Lord of Light wills it, Melisandre said. She sat beside him, uninvited. Because you have a role to play in what's coming, and because someone needs to prepare you for it. I don't believe in your God, Jon said. Belief is irrelevant, Melisandre replied. The God works through you whether you acknowledge him or not. I have seen you in the flames, Jon Snow. Seen you standing on a wall of ice, holding back the darkness. Seen you with a flaming sword, leading the living against the dead. That's just visions, Jon said. Dreams. They don't mean anything, don't they? Melisandre's eyes reflected the firelight. You dream of running on 4 legs, of hunting through forests, of tasting blood. Those dreams are real, aren't they? Jon said nothing, but she saw the truth in his face. You're a warg, Melisandre said. The old magic flows in your blood. Stark magic, and Targaryen magic too, though that's different. 2 bloodlines, 2 powers, meeting in one boy. That's not accident. That's destiny. I don't want destiny, Jon said. I want to live a normal life. Normal lives are for normal people, Melisandre said. You are not normal. You are ice and fire, wolf and dragon, and when the great war comes, the war between light and darkness, you will have to choose which side you fight for. I'll fight for the North, Jon said. For my family. That's all. We'll see, Melisandre said. She stood and walked back into the darkness. We'll see what you fight for when the long night comes and the dead march south. Until then, learn your lessons well, Jon Snow. War is cruel. Death is common. And sometimes the only way to save the living is to make the hard choices the dead can no longer make. She disappeared into the night, leaving Jon alone with Ghost and his troubled thoughts. They reached the western riverlands 10 days after leaving Moat Cailin. The land here was devastated. Every village they passed was either burned or abandoned. Fields lay fallow. Mills stood silent. The population had fled, leaving behind a wasteland. Tywin's strategy is working, Galbart Glover observed as they rode through another empty village. He's turned the riverlands into a desert. No food, no shelter, no support for armies trying to campaign here. Then we don't campaign, Robb said. We raid. Small groups hit and run. We burn Lannister supply wagons, kill their scouts, make them afraid to leave their camps. We fight like the Cranogmen fight, from the shadows disappearing before they can respond. That's not how Northern Lords traditionally fight, Meg said. Traditional fighting got Jaime Lannister captured at the Whispering Wood, Robb said. I don't care about tradition. I care about winning. They split their force. Robb kept 2,000 cavalry with him, moving toward River Run. The other 3,000 divided into smaller groups, bands of 50 to 100 men each, led by experienced commanders. Their orders were clear: harass the Lannisters wherever possible, but avoid pitched battles. The goal was to bleed Tywin's army slowly, make his position untenable. Robb's main force approached River Run cautiously. They knew Sir Kevan had 15,000 men besieging the castle. A direct confrontation would be suicide, but they had an advantage. Kevan didn't know they were coming. We need to contact the castle, Robb said. Let them know we're here. Coordinate attacks. The siege lines are tight, Galbart said. We can't just ride up and knock on the door. The rivers, Jon said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Rive Run controls where the Tumblestone meets the Red Fork. The Lannisters can't block the water approach without a fleet. If we send swimmers at night, they could reach the castle. It's risky, Mage said. The current's strong, and if the Lannisters spot them, it's also our best option, Robb said. Jon's right. We send our best swimmers, young men who can survive cold water. They carry messages to Lord Edmure. Coordinate our attack. What attack? Gelbart asked. We're outnumbered 7-1. We can't break the siege. We don't break it, Robb said. We disrupt it. Tomorrow night, we hit Kavan's supply depot. Burn everything. Create chaos. While his men are distracted, Riverrun sallies out and attacks from inside. We catch them between hammer and anvil. That requires perfect timing, Mage warned. Then we better get the timing right, Robb said. They sent 3 swimmers that night, young men from White Harbor who knew rivers. They stripped to small clothes, covered themselves in pig fat to ward off the cold, and slipped into the tumblestone upstream of the siege lines. 2 made it to Riverrun. The third was swept away by the current, his body found 3 miles downstream the next day. But 2 was enough. They carried Robb's message. Northern forces are here. Tomorrow night, we attack the Lannister supply depot. When you see fires, sally out and hit them from behind. Inside Riverrun, Edmure read the message with tears of relief in his eyes. The North came, he said to Brynden. They actually came. Of course they did. Brynden said, they're Pack, and Pack protects its own. He studied the message. This plan is bold, probably too bold, but it might work. It has to work, Edmure said. We're running out of options. Food's still plentiful, but morale is breaking. The men need a victory. They need to see we're not alone. Then we give them a victory, Brynden said. Tomorrow night we hit Kavan's forces hard, and pray the Northern boy knows what he's doing. The next night, Robb's force moved into position. 2,000 cavalry, hidden in the forest, 3 miles from Kavan's supply depot. They waited until midnight, then advanced in silence. No torches, no talking. Just the soft sound of hooves on grass and the whisper of wind through trees. The supply depot was guarded by 500 men, more than Brynden's raid had faced, but still vulnerable. Wagons sat in neat rows, filled with grain, arrows, salted meat. Everything Kavan's army needed to maintain the siege. Robb raised his hand. His cavalry split into 3 groups, each approaching from a different direction. Greywind led the center group, his massive form ghosting through the darkness. When they were 50 yards away, Robb dropped his hand. Now, 2,000 horsemen charged. The Lannister guards had seconds to react. Most didn't even reach their weapons. The Northern cavalry hit like an avalanche, swords flashing, horses trampling. Men with torches threw fire onto the wagons. The depot exploded into flame. Oil barrels burst, feeding the inferno. Arrows in their crates caught fire and shot in random directions. The heat was immense, driving everyone back. Inside Riverrun, Edmure saw the flames and signaled the attack. The gates opened. 1,000 Tully cavalry poured out, led by Brynden Blackfish. They hit Kavan's siege lines from behind, catching the Lannister soldiers completely off guard. Men scrambled for weapons. Officers shouted contradictory orders. The careful siege formation dissolved into chaos. Kavan himself rode forward, trying to rally his troops. Hold the line. It's just a raid. But his soldiers didn't know that. They saw fires, heard screaming, faced cavalry charges from 2 directions. Many broke and ran. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, Kevin's supply depot was ash. 300 Lannister soldiers lay dead. Another 200 were captured. And the siege lines were disrupted badly enough that it would take days to restore them. Robb's forces withdrew before Kevin could organize a counterattack. They vanished into the forest, melting away like ghosts. By dawn, they were 20 miles away, celebrating their victory around campfires. Jon had fought in the raid, had killed 2 men, Lannister soldiers who tried to stop him from burning a wagon. He had felt their blood on his hands, hot and sticky, had heard them scream, had watched the life leave their eyes. Now he sat apart from the celebrating soldiers, Ghost beside him, staring at his hands. They were clean, he had washed them in a stream, but he could still feel the blood. First time killing someone? Small Jon asked, sitting down beside him. Yes, Jon said quietly. Gets easier, Small Jon said. Not better. Never better, but easier. You learn to live with it. Learn to justify it. They were the enemy. You or them. All the things that let you sleep at night. Does it work? Jon asked. Do you sleep? Sometimes, Small Jon admitted. Other times I see their faces. Hear them begging. Wonder if they had families. Children? People who loved them? He shrugged. But I keep fighting anyway. Because if I don't, my family dies instead. That's the choice war gives you, kill or be killed. There's no third option. Jon nodded slowly. He understood intellectually, but emotionally, the weight of it sat heavy on his soul. Ghost nudged his hand. Jon scratched behind the direwolf's ears, finding comfort in the familiar gesture. Whatever else changed, Ghost remained constant. Loyal. Present. You did well tonight, Robb said, approaching. I saw you in the fight. You didn't freeze, didn't panic. That's more than most men can say their first time. I killed them, Jon said. You defended yourself and helped accomplish our mission, Robb corrected. Don't romanticize it, but don't torture yourself either. We're at war. People die in war. The best we can do is make sure more of them die than us. That's cold. That's command, Robb said. I sent 2,000 men into battle tonight. 12 of them died. 12 families will get letters telling them their sons, fathers, brothers are gone. That's on me. I made the decision that killed them. And tomorrow, I'll make more decisions that kill more men. Because that's what commanders do. We trade lives for objectives and pray the math works out. He sat beside Jon. I know this is hard. I know it's not what you wanted. But you asked to come. You said you wanted to prove yourself. This is what that means. Blood and death and choices that haunt you. Welcome to war, brother. It doesn't get better from here. They sat in silence, 2 young men barely out of boyhood, carrying burdens no one should have to carry. Around them, soldiers celebrated a victory. But Robb and Jon understood the cost. Understood that every victory was paid for in blood. And they knew this was just the beginning. The war was far from over, and many more men would die before it ended, on all sides, for all causes in all the terrible ways men found to kill each other. Winter was coming, and with it, darkness and death, and the grinding machinery of war that turned living men into corpses and corpses into memories. But for tonight, they had won. They had struck the Lannisters, proven the North was not helpless, shown that Tywin Lannister was not invincible. It would have to be enough. Because tomorrow, the war would continue, and they would have to find the strength to fight it, one brutal day at a time, until either victory or death released them from the struggle.